Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ayah number 196 of Surah Al-Baqarah. قال الله تعالى: وأتموا الحج والعمرة لله فإن أحصرتم فما استيسر من الهدي ولا تحلقوا رؤوسكم حتى يبلغ الهدي محله فمن كان منكم مريضا أو به أذى من رأسه ففدية من صيام أو صدقة أو نسك فإذا أمنتم فمن تمتع بالعمرة إلى الحج فما استيسر من الهدي فمن لم يجد فصيام 3 أيام في الحج و7 إذا رجعتم تلك 10 كاملة ذلك لمن لم يكن أهله حاضر المسجد الحرام واتقوا الله واعلموا أن الله شديد العقاب. This ayah, as is quite clear, continues on with the fiqhi themes of Surah Al-Baqarah in this last half of the surah. You remember, it has spoken about the Qibla, it has spoken about the Qisas and the bequest, and it has spoken on some matters of fasting. Recently, it was speaking about fighting in the way of Allah. That's also a fiqhi matter. And now the surah turns its attention to the Hajj. The months of Hajj come directly after Ramadan. So Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah are 3 months of Hajj. They come directly after Ramadan. So the words in this ayah were atimmu, meaning to complete. It's an order form. Al-Hajj, in the language it means al-qasd, when you intend to do or go somewhere. In the fiqhi terminology, it means that it is an act of devotion to Allah Jalla wa Ala, in which you intend to go to the Kaaba to complete certain rites. As for Umrah, it means to visit in the language. And in the fiqhi terminology, it means an act of devotion and worship to Allah in which you visit the Kaaba to perform certain rites. فَإِنْ أُحْصِرْتُمْ, from أحصر يحصر, if you are prevented. And this could be because of an enemy, but also other reasons such as illness and injury and so on. Something which is out of your control. فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ, from yasir, meaning easy. So whatever you find easy from the hadi. This means a sacrificial animal, but not just any animal. It refers to the animals from the an'am. So that is animals from the family of the sheep, cow or camel. Now this hadi is normally sacrificed to Allah Jalla wa Ala in the haram. But of course, if you are prevented from entering the haram, then you would sacrifice it wherever you are prevented or wherever you can. Actually, this ayah does not mention shaving the head. We know from the narration of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah that you also shave the head and release yourself from the ihram. وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا, do not shave, رُؤُوسَكُمْ, your heads, plural of ra's, حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ الْهَدْيُ مَحِلَّهُ, until the sacrificial animal reaches its place. This is talking about the haram, where it is sacrificed. Now this statement about not shaving your head continues on from the previous statement, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ. It does not continue on from the ihsar ruling. Then, on the same theme of shaving your head, he goes on to say, whoever from you is maridan, ill, أو به, or he has adhan, a harm or an annoyance, min ra'sihi, from his head. So he has some type of harm which forces him to shave his head, such as what happened to Ka'b ibn Ujrah radiallahu anh, who had lice falling off his head, and he had to shave his head off for this treatment. So if you have to shave your head, then the rule is you pay a fidya, a ransom. 3 options: min siyam, fasting, or sadaqah, that is giving in charity, or nusuk, that is sacrificing an animal from the bahimatul an'am. Originally, nusuk means ibadah, an act of worship. فَإِذَا أَمِنْتُمْ, then when you are safe, meaning no one is holding you back from the enemies, فَمَنْ تَمَتَّعَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ. Normally tamattu' means to enjoy yourself. In the Hajj terminology, tamattu' is to perform the Umrah during the months of the Hajj, then release yourself from the Ihram, completing the Umrah of course. Then when the days of Hajj begin, on the 8th, you enter back into the Ihram and perform the Hajj. The reason why it's called tamattu' is because you have enjoyed releasing yourself from the Ihram and performed 2 rituals of the Umrah and the Hajj in 1 year. He says Umrah ila al-Hajj, from the Umrah to the Hajj. So that is to say you perform the Umrah first and then you perform the Hajj. So if you perform this ritual, which is the recommended ritual if you have not brought along with you a sacrificial animal, then as a thanksgiving of this ni'mah of having performed 2 rituals in 1 year, you need to فَمَسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِي, what is easy from the hadi, meaning what is easy to sacrifice from the sacrificial animal. Then he says whoever does not find this hadi, is unable to purchase it, let's say, then there is an alternative, which is to fast 3 days fil hajj, meaning during his hajj. And this would also include the umrah as well if he is making a tamattu', because the umrah is a smaller hajj. As long as he is in the ihram of the umrah, that is fine. Otherwise he can perform it during the hajj as well. It is best not to fast during the day of Arafah, but he may fast any other day, as long as he is still in the ihram of the hajj. Because when you release yourself from the ihram, you are no longer in the hajj. And he says 7 when you return. That is when you return back to your family and your household. He says تِلْكَ عَشَرَةٌ كَامِلَةٌ, is at 10 full days. ذَلِكَ, that is, meaning this ruling which has just preceded, is for the one who is لَمْ يَكُنْ أَهْلُهُ حَاضِرِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. His family is not resident of the Al-Masjid al-Haram, meaning to say he's not a resident of the Al-Masjid al-Haram. This is not his regular place of living. So what does that mean? It is referring to Makkah and the whole of the Haram area. So, in other words, this sacrificial animal of the tamattu' applies only to those people who come into the Haram from outside or come into Makkah from outside. It does not apply to those who are normally resident in the Haram area or in the city of Makkah. Though having said that, it should be noted that there may be people who are staying in Makkah, let's say for study purposes, but their normal residence is outside of Makkah and the Haram area. What do we say about such people? We say yes, this sacrificial animal of tamattu' applies to them, even though they are staying in Makkah. But Makkah or the Haram area is not their usual residence. So take note of that. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. That is clear enough. And just as a side note, it would be interesting to note that this number 10 appears fairly frequently in the Quran for some reason, despite the fact that it's an even number and not an odd number. And you know Allah is odd and He loves that which is odd. However, 10 appears fairly frequently, such as in this ayah. This ayah is the first time which uses the number 10. We also have in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 234, that the widowed woman has a waiting period of 4 months and an extra 10 days. We'll speak about that inshallah later. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, breaking your oath has as one of its expiation فكفارته إطعام 10 مساكين, feeding 10 poor people. In Surah Al-An'am, من جاء بالحسنة فله 10 أمثالها. Whoever brings a good deed will have the reward 10 times its amount. In Surah Al-A'raf, Allah appointed 30 days to meet with Musa, and he added 10 more. وَوَعَدْنَا مُوسَى 30 لَيْلَةً وَأَتْمَمْنَاهَا بِعَشْرٍ فَتَمَّ مِيقَاتُ رَبِّهِ 40 لَيْلَةً. Also in Surah Al-Anfal, even though the number 10 is not used, 10 is used as a ratio, where he says if there are 20 of you, you will overcome 200. And if there are 100 of you, you will overcome 1,000 of the kuffar. Of course, this ratio was abrogated, but nevertheless, it is in the Quran as a ratio. So that's an interesting ratio, which is 10. In Surah Hud, Allah Jalla wa Ala challenges the kuffar to bring forth 10 surah like that of the Quran. أَمْ يَقُولُونَ افْتَرَى قُلْ فَأْتُوا بِعَشَرِ سُوَرٍ مِثْلِهِ مُفْتَرَيَاتٍ. In Surah Taha, when the people are resurrected, they will whisper to each other, يَتَخَافَتُونَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِن لَبِثْتُمْ إِلَّا عَشْرًا. You only tarried in this world for 10 days. In Surah Al-Qasas, the man asks Musa alayhi salam to work for him for 8 years, but he says, if you could do 10, this would be a favor from you. فَإِنْ أَتْمَمْتَ عَشْرًا فَمِنْ عِنْدِكَ. And finally in Surah Al-Fajr, وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. He takes an oath by the 10 nights. So you see, despite the fact that 10 is an even number and Allah is odd, He loves that which is odd, you would think that the number 10 appears in the Quran significantly more than it has any right to. And Allah Jalla wa Ala ultimately knows the wisdom behind what He does. Anyway, picking up on some points of benefit from this ayah, what can we pick up? We can pick up that it is an obligation to complete the Hajj and the Umrah. Now understand something here. This ayah was revealed when the Hajj and the Umrah were not obligatory. The Hajj was made obligatory in the 9th year. This ayah came down before then. Which means what? It means that even if you are performing an optional Umrah or Hajj, it is wajib upon you to go ahead and complete it. You cannot just change your mind and say, well, I do not feel like doing this anymore, or maybe stop doing it for an unnecessary reason. You must complete it. It's different to fasting. You can break your fast, if it's optional, at any time, even on a whim. We take the obligation of sincerity to Allah because He says, Lillah, for Allah. So all acts of ibadah must be sincere. We pick up the fiqhi point that if you are prevented from the Hajj or the Umrah, then the way to release yourself from the Ihram is to sacrifice an animal from the Bahimatul An'am. It is also to shave your head off as well, which we find from the narrations. Any animal which you sacrifice for Allah needs to be a musinna, one who has the front teeth growing, and must be free from basic defects, which are known in the books of fiqh. We may pick up another fiqhi point from this ayah, which is that if you are prevented from the Hajj or the Umrah, then it is not obligatory upon you to perform the Hajj next year, as in to make up for the Hajj. This is because the ayah does not tell us to do so, and this is the better opinion amongst the scholars. And this is the case unless the Hajj you were performing and were prevented from was the obligatory Hajj for you. So if that's the case, then of course, the next year you must endeavor to fulfill that obligation. We pick up that in the Hajj or the Umrah, it is haram to shave your head. And this is because you shave your head when you release yourself from the Ihram. So then before that, it is impermissible to do so. As for whether the rest of the body hair can be shaved off or whether the nails can be cut off, then this is a fiqhi matter, and we have discussed this matter in our fiqh presentation. However, the ayah also notes that it may be the case that you have to shave your head, as in the example we mentioned before. But if you do that because of an illness or some medical condition, then you have to pay the fidyah. The detail of the fidyah is not actually given in the ayah, it is given in the narration of Ka'b ibn Ujrah, where the Prophet told him to fast 3 days or give half a sa' to 6 poor people, or to sacrifice an animal from the Bahimatul An'am with the proper conditions of the animal, as in it being a musanna and free from certain defects. We take from this ayah another fiqhi point, that you are not allowed to shave your head to exit the ihram until you have sacrificed the hadi. Now this is definitely the case for the person who brings along the sacrificial animal. So the one who brings along the sacrificial animal does not appear to have a choice, according to this ayah, as well as the authentic narration of the Prophet, where he forbade himself from shaving off the head until he has sacrificed his animal. He brought along a sacrificial animal. However, we do have from the authentic narration that if you have not brought along a sacrificial animal, and you have to sacrifice an animal for the tamattu', which is what we spoke about before, then you do have a choice and there is flexibility. You can do it in any order you like. You can sacrifice the animal, shave the head afterwards. You may shave the head before, sacrifice afterwards. And there is much flexibility on the 10th day. And the detail of this really is in the fiqh presentations and books. We find that at-tamattu' is legislated, and there's a particularly interesting reason for this. During the days of Jahiliyyah, the Ahlul Jahiliyyah would have this belief that performing the Umrah during the months of Hajj, Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah is the worst type of sin. And the Prophet ﷺ wanted to erase this belief from the minds of the people. So he obligated the companions to not perform the Hajj, but rather turn it into an Umrah, and then release from the Umrah, and thereafter perform the Hajj. Now, as for the question whether the one performing the Qiran also comes under the ruling of Tamattu' is a fiqhi discussion. So we'll leave it for the books of fiqh. We find that this deen is built upon ease because Allah says, فَمَسْتَيْسَرَ, whatever is easy from the hadi. So you see the flexibility given. We can take that at-tamattu' requires a hadi, and if you do not find such an animal or even the price to pay for such an animal, then we have the alternative given, the 10 days of fasting as was mentioned. As for the 3 days during the Hajj, we said you could do this in the Umrah as well if you're making tamattu'. Just be sure not to fast the day of Eid, which is the 10th. And as for Arafah, this is not recommended. However, the days of Tashriq can be fasted. We have evidence for that. And this is for the one who does not find the hadi. Alternatively, you can do it when you're in the ihram before the Arafah, and even during the ihram when you're making the Umrah. We find that this hadi for the tamattu' is not applicable for the one who resides normally in the haram or in Mecca. Now, such a person can actually make tamattu', so that is, he comes from outside the haram, making the ihram for the Umrah, performs that, releases himself, and then performs the Hajj. If he does that, he does not need to make a sacrifice of tamattu', as is quite clear in the ayah. We notice that Allah Jalla wa Ala calls this masjid al-haram, meaning sacred. And so in this there is a fadila of this masjid of the Kaaba. We also take the obligation of having taqwa of Allah Jalla wa Ala, as we find this many times in the Quran, and we also realize something of the description of Allah is that he is severe in punishment. Of course, this is a threat to us. Wallahu a'lam.